The latest thing Sánchez has done was unthinkable. He wants to naturalize them, not just regularize their status. Naturalize them, meaning that as many people as possible can vote in the shortest possible time. In fact, Sánchez's national priority is not Spain, it's Buenos Aires.
Yes, I have filed at least a dozen complaints for threats, all of them, because they are all for threats. I don't report any kind of insults on social media. That's something I've already moved past, slander and defamation, because otherwise I'd have to be at the national police or in court every day. But there are a lot of death threats that come directly to my cell phone, and death threats that are also made through profiles with first and last names. Obviously, when I have all that information, I go to the national police and file a report.
Anyway, Milia and Iberostar, sorry, they're not doing this because they're good people or anything like that. They're doing it to, as we say in Cuba, clean up their image a bit or their reputation to see if they can get into a free Cuba. If it were up to me, and some people I've heard say this who are pretty influential, those people won't get a cent in the new Cuba because these people have even been complicit in forced labor.
I'm a practicing Roman Catholic, but I'm very critical of the situation of the church in general, in the world, and especially in Spain, Albert. And I'm not going to see the Pope Leo XIV. I'm really sorry. I think the visit is untimely and even worse, complicit. I don't think it's the right time to visit Spain or to have welcomed this person earlier. I also think the Pope should come to preach the gospel, staying away from parties and these kinds of scenes. Madrid is paralyzed. What's happening is really overwhelming. They've sent everyone to work from home. On Sunday, Bishop Cobo, who is disgraceful, ordered the suspension of worship throughout the entire province of Madrid. We have to go to Mass in the afternoon because the Pope is coming. It wasn't done with John Paul II. It wasn't done with Benedict XVI because there's no reason to do it.
Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón.
Welcome, confidentials. Thank you for staying strong in the trenches and for helping us raise the voice of the citizens against corrupt governments. We are surrounded by them everywhere. The most radical left always takes power, always tied to drug trafficking groups and criminal organizations. And when we suffer them because they come to power in the government of any country, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, or Spain, the situation becomes critical. Here it has happened after the same thing happened in other countries. That's why we are warning, pointing out that the path is the same and that the final goal is also to stay in power indefinitely, so that citizens become poorer, less independent, and less free. And that's what's happening while the political debate in Spain is focused on votes of no confidence and absurd general budgets because Sánchez is lying and says that now it's for real. Don't pay attention, that's just background noise, or like the Pope's visit, more noise than anything else. Look, Sánchez has one goal, and that's to win the next elections through the back door. We've been warning you about this for months, and he's already tested his alleged fraud mechanism. He did it in the regional elections in Castilla y León. He did it in Extremadura, all just a few months or weeks ago. He did it in Aragon, and he did it again in Andalusia. In Andalusia, it was especially important because the number and scale of people voting from abroad in Andalusia was huge. It broke the record. More than 200,000 people wanted to vote from outside Spain. It worked out well for him each time. On all four occasions, as we already told you, the Popular Party won in Spain and the PSOE collapsed. But not in the Serra vote. In the vote of Spaniards abroad, interestingly, in all four places the PSOE won. They don't ask themselves why. It's obvious, and we've proven it, that there's alleged rigging, electoral fraud, that there's control over the postal service to know who should and shouldn't vote, that they run massive campaigns in foreign countries to get votes for the PSOE. They even subsidize Casas de España. Any Spanish association outside of Spain is subsidized. And they warn them that if they don't behave when they're asked for their vote, of course the tap gets turned off and the subsidy ends. This has been happening for months, but the latest thing Sánchez has done was unthinkable. He wants to nationalize, not regularize, nationalize, meaning that as many people as possible can vote in the shortest possible time. In fact, Sanchez's national priority is not Spain, it's Buenos Aires. Gentlemen, the government has outsourced the process to obtain nationality. Every time someone wants to obtain citizenship, a file is opened and there's an official who checks background, criminal records. Current situation, the reason whether it's because they had a grandfather in Spain or are a child of exile or any other reason. Well, in Buenos Aires, there are 650,000 people who have requested it, and the number is slowly approaching 1 million because this figure keeps increasing. And since Sánchez is in a hurry to secure that captive vote, he has outsourced the process. It will no longer be civil servants who review each file, but companies. Companies handpicked by Sánchez that will, without a doubt, receive the order to overlook everything. Forget about criminal records. It doesn't matter if in the end the grandfather wasn't Spanish. Say yes, nationalize, nationalize, nationalize. With the sole objective that they vote for me a year from now when, if God wills it, I have no choice but to call elections. We're looking for more information. Gabriel Araujo, as we're saying, you're a computer expert. So what used to be done by civil servants will now be done by the company that hired Jessica Abalos's prostitute.
Exactly, just as you said, Ineko. In other words, the company Engineering and Transport Economics, which is under the Ministry of Transport, a semi-public company that gave Jessica a job, will be in charge of replacing the work of the consular officials, which I even think is on the edge of legality, if not totally illegal, because this is clearly a public file that should be handled by public officials. And I specifically think this is outrageous because the contract includes 2,000 new people to manage all of this, the massive needs, apart from the hires already made by Neoris Spain, which, remember, had also been contracted to help with this massive naturalization, right?
I mean, they're spending millions to speed everything up. That's the point, so that the cases don't get delayed. The ultimate goal is that in Buenos Aires, they decide who presides over Spain, right?
Exactly. And besides, their attitude is no longer even disguised because the socialist senator for foreign affairs himself, Mr. Cesar Mogo, openly admitted that the intention was to finish and process those naturalization files quickly. Those were his exact words. So here, the attitude of the Socialist Party, in this case the PSOE, is already undisguised, since Cesar Mogo isn't part of the government but is from the Socialist Party, right? And let's also remember that Paco Salazar has moved to Argentina and is living in Argentina as an electoral advisor. So let's say all those loose ends, when you tie them together, obviously lead to that manipulation, which, by the way, about the manipulation of the electoral census, I want to say that we appreciate that many media outlets have finally woken up and are reporting on this. As you and we have been reporting and warning about this issue for some time, right?
Thank you, Gabriel. We will keep investigating. Take care.
Best regards. See you soon.
Friends, this is just the beginning. Electoral fraud is at our doorstep. We're investigating.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillo.
Friends, we have received many messages from viewers of Confidential who are concerned about a friend of this show, Rubén Pulido. One of them is our friend Ana from Tenerife.
Look, I'm really glad to be able to help Rubén Pulido because I felt so sorry for him. I saw it on Twitter. All those NGOs, the Red Cross, all of that, it's just like with cancer, all of that is just government stuff. The government runs all of it. And I feel so sorry for what they're doing to Rubén Pulido. And I see it, the poor guy is alone. We have to help him. It's not that he's completely alone. Of course, a lot of people support him. He's handling all the migration work alone since I don't see anyone else doing it.
When we got hacked, he was the first one to come out and help us. And if something happens to Rubén Pulido, it happens to all of us, right? He's the best immigration expert in this country. He works at La Gaceta and he collaborates with several media outlets, radio and television. And they've reported him. They say it's for racist or xenophobic content, for showing the file of a fake unaccompanied minor at the Hortaleza Center. And the prosecutor is asking for a sentence. There's going to be a trial, and this is going to take a long time. Rubén has felt obligated to start a legal crowdfunding campaign to pay for his defense, and we want to help with that. Rubén, welcome. How are you?
Hello, Albert. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you again.
Are you worried or not?
I'm worried because, you see, in the end, Article 510 of the Penal Code, that hate crime which is open to free interpretation, can be understood from many perspectives. It has its nuances within those interpretations. So part of me is worried and part of me is calm because I know I haven't done anything wrong. Simply, what I've done is highlight a very common trend around these centers for unaccompanied foreign minors. And I've also put on the table that this Center for Unaccompanied Foreign Minors from Hortaleza was fully aware of the danger that rapists posed, right? That they already knew beforehand that there were, to put it mildly, inappropriate behaviors around that individual, that profile, and action could have been taken in time. And he could have been expelled from that center for unaccompanied foreign minors, and he could have been expelled from Spain, given everything they knew. I put that information on the table, and all the alarms go off, right? All the alarms go off pointing at me as a xenophobe, as a racist, for exposing something that has been hidden in every possible way. Because in the end, I have that document thanks to a lot of hard work and the risk taken by people who are putting their jobs on the line, risking their positions by providing me with all this information and also some files that show through many photographs that the minors, the supposed minors who are in that Hortaleza Center, actually have a physical appearance that is far from that of minors. Because of all this, the Center for Unaccompanied Foreign Minors in Hortaleza has reported me to the Madrid Prosecutor's Office, and the Madrid Prosecutor's Office has opened an investigation and sent everything to the courts because the Prosecutor's Office believes there may be crimes involved.
But look, it's absurd. I mean, what should have come out of a journalistic investigation is what's happening in the Hortaleza Center, where they are taking in adults who end up committing crimes that could have been prevented. And that's the investigation that isn't being carried out. The one that's being carried out is shooting the messenger, right?
That's right. The center's management is still the same. The center's administration is still the same. Only the deputy director has changed. So that, you know, I am aware of everything that goes on inside that juvenile center, but no one is ever held accountable. I insist the management and administration are still the same, and there have been no consequences for them despite everything that has happened and everything that continues to happen in that juvenile center. It's a different matter whether we are aware of them, because it's the management and administration themselves who always do everything possible to keep it from coming to light. What happens inside are constant conflicts, in some cases that end with extreme violence.
Well, first of all, the most important thing is that in the description of today's program, there's a link that takes you to that legal page where each person can donate whatever they can for this crowdfunding. It's for Rubén Pulido and it's going very well. There are more than 400 donations, but not everyone gives large amounts, just whatever they can. If the insiders collaborate, we'll give it the final push because these people sue you. then there's an appeal, and lawyers are very expensive, and so are the experts. So we have to help with it as if it were this program. And secondly, you've already been sued 10 times. I read about it on social media, and all of them have been dismissed, right?
Yes, I have filed at least a dozen complaints for threats, all of them because they are all for threats. I don't report any kind of insults on social media. We've already moved past slander and defamation, because if I didn't, I'd have to be at the National Police or in court every day. But there are a lot of death threats that come directly to my cell phone, and death threats that are also made through profiles with first and last names. Obviously, when I have all that information, I go to the National Police and I file a complaint because I understand that my integrity and my person are being threatened or attacked, since I have already had to regret unpleasant incidents in the past. Well, the courts are dismissing all those complaints because they don't find any indication that I was actually threatened. Despite, as I said, having already suffered an assault back in October of the year 2020, the courts believe that my safety is not at risk and that all those kinds of threats shouldn't have any consequences. And that's what I'm dealing with the backing as well of some courts that dismiss all these complaints, order the case to be closed, and leave them unresolved. And in the end, there are no consequences at all, especially for all those people who make those threats against me. And sometimes even from phone numbers, which I don't think would be too hard to trace either.
Yeah. So threatening certain people or people who think a certain way comes with no consequences. Hey, we're already a bit tired, fed up with the fact that reporting specific incidents involving specific immigrant populations is called racism or xenophobia. We have more than enough data, and most police officers or the ministry can prove that what we're saying isn't a lie. You were a pioneer in this. Is public opinion changing? Are people finally seeing the truth behind the numbers?
Yes, in the end, people are looking at the statistics, not just the statistics from the National Statistics Institute, but we're also fortunate to have some Mossos de Escuadra and also a chain. They have also prepared some reports that are very clear regarding all these criminological trends. There is imported crime, there is crime that comes to Spain through illegal and uncontrolled immigration. And that is already empirical evidence, which is documented in reports, which is statistically proven, and that ordinary citizens are seeing. Also on our streets, Almeria, Granada, the entire southern area of Spain. If we go to the Levante area, it's the same. Murcia, Alicante, Valencia, Barcelona, what can we say? And the north of Spain, Bilbao, Pamplona, are suffering the consequences of this border debacle. And no one can be fooled anymore, because it's the neighbors themselves who are seeing the consequences of this border debacle every day. They are seeing how crime rates are increasing. They are seeing how there are certain hours when they can't go out on the street safely. They are seeing how there are neighborhoods they can't go to because there are numerous conflicts among the people in those neighborhoods. And numerous conflicts with those who visit those areas with a high concentration of illegal immigrants. So people are already seeing it, they're feeling it. Fortunately, that's how it is. So there are already people you can't approach with the same old argument like, no, they're isolated cases. No, it's just a few. When they know that in many cases, during a single week, they're constantly lamenting criminal incidents. I've been in certain areas recently. I was in Montefrio. I spoke with the residents of Montefrio. After that unfortunate incident where a Maghrebi man came out with an axe and spread panic all morning, and they've told me this is not an isolated episode. Incidents keep happening constantly and occur every week, and not only in Montefrio, but also in neighboring towns. It's also happening in many towns in Seville. Recently, attention was drawn to Cantillana, but it's not just Cantillana. There are many towns that are having the same problem. The sad thing is that something atrocious has to happen for all this to come to light, for those neighbors to have a voice, for us to be able to interview them, and not all the media cover it. In fact, the vast majority just skim over the information. They don't talk to those neighbors. They don't talk about that reality that, as I said, is multiplying every day.
Rubén, why doesn't Spain acknowledge the jihadist attacks? Yesterday, you published in La Gaceta that Spain was once again being threatened through a pamphlet, and right before the Pope's visit. But in Switzerland, in France, in Germany, if someone shouts Allahu Akbar and kills someone, it's analyzed as a terrorist act. Here it's not. Here it's always a mental problem. Here they never say it's a terrorist. Why?
Well, I don't know if we want to deceive the public again. Years ago, people were deceived by saying that everyone was a refugee. We're already seeing that's not the case because police operations show the large amounts of money paid to make those movements happen. Now they're trying to talk to us about a psychotic episode to try to blur what is actually a terrorist attack. The main argument is the same. It's to divert attention and shift focus to someone else. On another point, not taking responsibility for the consequences that this whole border debacle is bringing us, and that way to be able to keep moving forward with policies that are nothing but patches and won't solve the problem, and this problem is only going to get worse. Meanwhile, the state security forces and law enforcement are trying to fight against the tide because so far this year we've already had more than 100 arrests for terrorism. Islamists for jihadist terrorism in Spain last year ended with 100. We're halfway through the year because we've just entered June and we've already had more than 100. This year is going to end just like last year. And that's not only indicative of the great work being done by the state security forces and agencies, but it's also an indication of the serious and grave threat against our national security, which is already recognized as such in the National Security Report itself, that the routes of illegal immigration are a vector for infiltration, terrorist infiltration, and there are police operations that also prove it, no matter how much we try to avoid looking in that direction. Attacks are happening in Spain and they're happening more and more frequently. A few years ago, we mourned one in Torre Pacheco, that was back in 2020 or 2021, a fatal ramming that at first was also attributed to a psychotic episode. And then the national court ended up opening proceedings for a jihadist attack because there were manuals, because there was a prior ritual. We have mourned what happened in Montefrio. We have mourned what happened in Esplugas. We have mourned what happened in Vallecas. Now we have to mourn another recent one where everything about the situation is the same, a religious motive, it's a jihadist attack. Just to give you an example, I'll tell you something that hasn't come to light yet. The person who committed the Vallecas attack is in a terrorist unit. However, the media said he was on drugs, that it was insanity, that it was a psychotic episode. He's in a unit where there are terrorists. Yes, he's in a unit with terrorists because he committed a terrorist attack, and this hasn't come to light. And well, I'm bringing it to you here now, exclusively. But just so we see that the justice system itself, the prisons themselves understand it this way, and the state security forces and agencies understand it this way too. Because I have spoken with the officers who participated in the arrest of that jihadist from Vallecas, and they made it clear to me there is no suggestion there that it has anything to do with the individual's mental health. No, there was something premeditated there. There was a clear message behind it, and that was a jihadist attack like the ones that have been happening more and more frequently, and we will regret it if we don't do anything to prevent it in the future, of course.
They treat us like children, as if we weren't ready to know the truth, please. What we're not ready for is to put up with so many lies. That's the last one already. Can we be safe with the Pope's visit? I'm saying this because yesterday I released a video and I've heard rumors that the government in Spain is capable of anything to use the visit to divert attention. What have you heard, Rubén?
Well, I think that the Pope's visit, beyond his visit to Madrid, to the city of Barcelona, to some national locations, is going to be used to continue whitewashing illegal immigration, to keep trying to make us focus there, from a specific perspective, and it's from that humanitarian perspective, from that do-gooder perspective, which has absolutely nothing to do with everything we're talking about. I think the attention will be diverted there. Also, what I've been able to confirm in the last few hours is that the Islamic State in its bulletins also mentions this visit. That is, the Islamic State will reward any individual who, acting alone, acts as a lone wolf, as we know it now, tries to carry out an attack against the Pope's visit. That's there, right? And that's also an indication that in Spain there are individuals, profiles who may be ready to take action whenever necessary. I know, I am aware that the state security forces and agencies are also aware of this targeting. And I simply hope that they will act accordingly on a preventive level, which I'm sure will be the case, right? But it's just another example of what will happen around this whole situation and what we have in Spain and what we could have, as I said before, in the future. Even more so when we also have a country down there on the southern border, which I mentioned just a few hours ago, that in the last 7 years has already had almost 68,000 pardons, almost 68,000 pardons from 2019 until the most recent one this year, which includes 175 terrorists pardoned. 175 terrorists sentenced to prison who have been granted amnesty and pardoned in exchange for a statement that is little more than saying they distance themselves, right, from any radical Islamic principle and that they embrace religion in a more sensible way. They don't need anything else for that pardon to take place. And that, without a doubt, is also a risk factor, knowing what we know, right? Everything that comes from that northern area of Morocco, everything that comes from that Atlantic coastal area and from the Sahara, where these criminal networks can infiltrate more easily.
It's the perfect move. Releasing 68,000 prisoners, many of them Moroccan terrorists, and legalizing 1 million or 2 here without any kind of checks. It's the perfect move. We are seeing the effects and we will continue to see them. Rubén, I hope we can help you more with that crowdfunding, and I hope the justice system understands what press freedom and investigative journalism are and focuses where it should. I hope that soon you'll tell me if the case has been closed or if there's no case. I hope that's how it turns out. A big hug, my friend.
A big hug, Albert. Thank you.
Castillón Confidencial, de Albert Castillón.
Gentlemen, what has happened in the last few hours never ceases to surprise us. The UCO report with unprecedented courage tells everything in detail. The PSO is dirty underbelly. We already explained to you yesterday about the 18,000 euros that the PSOE paid on Sanchez's orders to buy the audio recordings from Savignano's saunas. Supposedly, later they could have been used for blackmail or bribes by the sewer. And perhaps the most serious thing that witness says that the Director General of the Civil Guard, Leonardo Marcos, appointed by Marlaska in 2023, received the order from Marlaska to instruct the UCO in September 2024 not to investigate Sánchez. In fact, what the Director General received as an order from Marlaska and passed on to the UCO was to look the other way. That's the phrase. To look the other way in the case of Sanchez's brother and in the rest of the PSOE scandals. The order was given, as I said, by this man you are seeing, Leonardo Marcos. And in any other country, Marlaska would have resigned 40 times already. But this isn't just burning him, he's completely scorched with the added fact that Marlaska was a judge. He knows that everything he's doing is illegal and that one day he could end up in prison for it. And yet he does it. What kind of power does Sánchez have, or how much money has he given him, or in which accounts is it? That's what we need to ask ourselves. For some time now, we've been receiving reports in the press that Marlaska's husband might have a fortune, but we haven't gotten to those accounts yet. The fact that the Ministry of the Interior acts this way should open a new chapter, a new investigation just about Minister Marlaska and his own dirty dealings. Francisco Vendala, Lieutenant Colonel, the Ministry of the Interior has never sunk so low, has it?
It has never sunk so low, nor acted so illegally, nor committed an alleged crime, which is a blatant case of misconduct. Nor, of course, did it ever put itself so much at the service of that despot Sánchez or anyone else, as we are seeing now, unfortunately. Albert, this is something that had to come out eventually anyway, because what we're seeing just can't be sustained. These networks, these conspiracies, these mafias only exist by controlling the police forces, silencing them, shutting them up, corrupting them. Also partly because we just saw that one of their generals apparently collaborated perfectly, knowingly, even enthusiastically with this kind of orders. That's the key, seeing it. We've said it here on your show many times. You've reported it as an exclusive and you're telling everyone because it's the truth. That's the problem. That chain of officials is what needs to be cut off at the root. When they receive an illegal, unconstitutional, illegitimate, corrupt, or criminal order, they are the ones who must first say no and immediately proceed to report it. If here the head of the civil guard, the director of the civil guard, this one, like any other, tells you, hey, just look the other way. In your job, in fulfilling your duties, those that you have sworn to uphold the law and order, you have the obligation, first to say no to them, and second, to report them. That way, in 2024, we would have already known that there was a complaint from the civil guard itself against the director of the civil guard for this or other cases. More cases are going to come out, Albert. You are also uncovering them and presenting them, one of the few, if not the only one, but what is happening. This is the network that needs to be destroyed, Albert, so that officials from any ministry, like the Ministry of Transport with Abalos and others, would have said, no, this is illegal or this is corrupt, this is criminal. That's important. Let's see if we become aware of it. The problem is still that there's division in these institutions, Albert. There are many who obey. We've seen it with our generals who are now being investigated by the UCO itself. That's the big problem, and that's what needs to be reported. That the healthy part of these institutions, of the civil guard, of the police, of the armed forces, of Ministry X, of transport, whichever it may be, have the courage, the bravery to say no and to report it the moment those orders are given. The end doesn't justify the means, especially not these means, Albert.
It's very serious because, gentlemen, this is not, don't think this is just another case of corruption. This is already the definitive step toward ending up like Venezuela, Nicaragua, or Cuba. When the security forces obey political orders and turn a blind eye, it ends up like Cuba. Saida Chaling Chong, how are you? Alliance Against Communism, you know well what I'm talking about?
Greetings, Albert, and greetings to the viewers of this beloved channel, a reference for many, indeed, yes. When the separation of powers is completely broken and everything gets mixed together, well, these kinds of things happen, which generally and most of the time lead to injustices. Because what we're experiencing here, for example, in the case of Sanchez's brother, is that a person who was about to get in, right, for the position, the one who was qualified, the one who was prepared, suffered an injustice and had no one to turn to for redress. Luckily, I've always said, you know what? I've practically expressed blind trust in the strength of Spanish institutions, despite all the attacks this government has tried to make against them. And as we're seeing, what's important is pretty well defined, and the irrelevant stuff. But regardless of that, that's why programs like this exist. We have to keep raising our voices. We have to keep warning people, because above all, we can't let our guard down. Because freedom, democracy is something very fragile. And that's why the separation of powers exists, so that each one oversees but does not control. The other day, I heard a politician saying that the legislative branch had to control the executive. I was shocked. Sometimes you hear these kinds of comments, right? And what the branches of government have to do is watch over each other so that each one fulfills its function. And as we well know, the judicial branch seems to be the last outpost, right? The last line of resistance.
Well, the next thing will be that they shut down our channels, which they're already doing, so we can't tell you what's happening. Or that the UCO, which just released this devastating report, but they've already released 20 devastating ones and more to come, gets dismantled. Here we tell you that this plan exists, the plan to dismantle the UCO and the UDEF and create a National Guard. obviously with political power completely dominating it. For what purpose? To put an end to this, to put an end to serious, well done, and responsible investigations. I don't know, a lot of things happen here and everything takes a long time. The Director General of the Civil Guard should already be charged for saying they should keep a low profile, or what Coldo said also about Begoña Gomez, do you remember? And me.
Was any commission paid? Any financial compensation for the rescue?
The only thing I can say is that the Hidalgos mentioned, and that was in front of me, that compensation was necessary to compensate for the favorable treatment that Mrs. Begoña had given.
Compensate how?
Well, man, I don't know exactly how they did it, but the word they used, they said, they started talking, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about 100 or 200 euros, and eventually mentioned 1 million. I don't know if it's something that has legs, but at that moment, as I say, I would have liked not to be there, but it's true that I was, and it's true that I heard it.
And what else did they say about Begoña's compensations?
No, the truth is they specified it a bit vaguely in general terms that the best thing they could do was compensate. So I know I can say it like that because that's what happened and what I heard. How did they want to do it, or what did they want to do? Well, honestly, I don't know, but they were speaking very seriously. And they were talking
about 1 million euros.
The word they said is from 100 up to 1 million.
They began at $100,000, then discussed $1 million.
I'm not sure if they started at $100,000 or $200,000 and ended at $1 million.
And was there money for the president?
That I don't...
The compensation was only theoretically for Begoña Gomez?
That's what I heard. I didn't hear anything about Mr. Pedro.
That is, Coldo said in an interview with OK Diario that Begoña got paid $1 million and he heard it for helping with the rescue of Ere Europa. And Begoña is charged, yes, with a bunch of cases, but not for this. Not for Ere Europa. How can that be? Justice is very slow in Spain, Bendala, and that's a problem, isn't it?
Justice in Spain has lost its two fundamental pillars, being exemplary and being swift. Justice in any country in the world, in any human community, must be exemplary in its rulings and swift, because it's useless if something comes out after 10 years. That's terrible. That's been happening in Spain for a long time, Albert. And that's another one of the major factors that support what you said at the beginning and what Saide also told us. A tyranny, a dictatorship of truth comes about because of these things. It happens when that tyrannical power controls those levers that are important, the ones that watch over themselves. Justice has tremendous power, which it has unfortunately lost due to its own corruption, because it is the collective power that can bring even the president of the government to the stand. We saw it with Watergate in the United States. A president of the United States fell because of a scam he was involved in during an election. That is the great power of justice and judges that has been lost in Spain, Albert. And until we restore that, just as we restore the fulfillment of their missions in the police forces, we need to make a call to judges, to civil guards, to police officers, to the armed forces. They owe themselves to Spain. Their oath is to Spain and to their leader, as long as they fulfill their missions and give legal, constitutional orders that are respected, therefore, by the judge.
It's not that easy. Esmeralda, a week ago we talked about this here, about why, well, even the military, for example, during the Dana, didn't stop listening to their commander's orders and went out to help and to save lives, right? Esmeralda tells us that this can't be done. Listen.
In Spain, or in any country in the world, no member of the military, not even a general of the highest rank, can call their battalions to intervene politically. Doing so would be considered military rebellion, according to Articles 472 and 473 of the Penal Code, a coup d'etat, even if it's done with good intentions.
What do you think about what Bendala says?
No, I'm sorry, but I don't agree. Upholding the law above all else can never be considered a coup d'etat. What will obviously happen is that it will lead them to act that way, just like what happened in Ladana with those who voluntarily went out in plain clothes to help despite having orders against it. Yes, it does bring them logically persecution, but it can never be considered a coup d'etat, precisely because it is defending legality, the Constitution, which binds us all. Against whom? Against those who break it. What I think is that we have to lose that fear. We have to lose that fear, let's also say that historical fear, like July 18th or whatever it is. And we have to remember maybe May 2nd, 1808, when two captains and a lieutenant go out into the street to help a people who are rebelling against whom? Well, against an opposing army, against tyranny, ultimately for freedom and for dignity. I also think that moreover it is. But it's very important to remember all the penal codes, the military one, the police one, the general penal code for citizens, which obliges you, and it's written, not to obey unconstitutional orders, laws, or regulations. Of course, the problem, Albert, and I understand, Emeralda, is that this leads, in the situation we're living in, to those people being immediately retaliated against. We say it that way because the idea is right in front of us. Retaliated against, like in Cuba. That's why Cuba continues to hold on despite everything, just as it is today. And if not, let someone contradict me. Because those police forces and the army keep oppressing a people whose only option is to go out into the streets and shout. But if they do anything else, they're exterminated, Albert.
And speaking of Cuba, we're seeing images of how the protests are happening in broad daylight. This hadn't happened before. Often it was darkness, bonfires, and a lot of banging on pots and pans, but now in broad daylight, people are just fed up. The messages of hope that we send from the United States and through media like this have resonated with the people, and they can't take it anymore. What are you hearing? Because I'm fed up. I mean, my contacts keep telling me it's going to happen any day now. It's just a matter of days, but here, nothing. It's a bit like Maduro's extraction, remember? We kept announcing it every day, and it took 3 months before it actually happened. What news are you getting from Cuba?
Well, I don't have any information about the exact date, but what's happening in Cuba, with some differences, is very similar to what happened on July 11th, 2021. Remember that we brought, for example, Osiris here to the show, who was one of the victims, right? From that popular uprising, shot by the militarized police forces of the Communist Party. And we brought you the bullets here at the Hospital del Mar from Barcelona, and he has asylum status and is protected by the Kingdom of Spain, and people have already lost everything. You have no electricity, you have no water, you have no dignity. There are no basic medicines, there are no vitamins, there is no penicillin, there are no basic medicines, there is no gauze, there is no hydrogen peroxide, there is no needle and thread to stitch you up, there aren't even basic necessities.
In Venezuela, you go to a hospital and you have to bring your own aspirin, medicine, bandages, and hydrogen peroxide.
Just like in Cuba.
Communism follows the same path.
Cubans who have family abroad who can be saved if they go to a hospital because, of course, the family abroad buys things. I go to the pharmacy here and buy everything I need and even things I don't. The pharmacist could be a woman or a man. They bring it to me and I send it in a package quickly so it can be used for a surgery or whatever else may be needed. But what's happening is that people have even lost their fear. People know, despite the restrictions and the occasional crackdowns, for example, now, a YouTuber who was a comedian snuck into a YouTuber who snuck into an abandoned military base in ruins, and he showed, of course, all the rockets, the tanks, all the war material, right? Destroyed, abandoned. Of course, that sends a very clear message that they don't have anything to defend themselves with, which we already know, right? And they're isolated, but even so, people keep going out in the streets protesting because people are fed up with the shamelessness. Marco Rubio just pointed out Geisa as the main company exploiting Cubans, which is basically Cuba's flagship military company. And Geisa, they took away the GAE because it used to be SA. GAE SA, they removed the SA. They say it's no longer called SA anymore. And now they say they've helped build hospitals and schools, but we don't know which hospitals and which schools they've helped to this company. And the most positive thing, even though they're doing it for their own reasons, is that Melia and Iberostar have left Cuba. We've been doing this for years.
Melia and Iberostar are gone. It was about time. It was about time.
Yes, we've been asking for years.
It's an absolute disgrace that Spanish companies were there so that Pablo Iglesias and Manuel Arias and a few others could go as if nothing was happening here. And to take pictures of the poor in the street, which made the whole thing look like a shameful circus. Let's remember, they've never made money in Cuba. What they did was pretend they were there, and the difference was paid by the Spanish government to the Cuban government, which kept a part and gave the rest to these companies, right, Saide?
Exactly, through something called PSA, the Political Dialogue and Cooperation Agreement between the European Union and Cuba. There has been pressure because these types of bilateral agreements require all 27 to be in agreement. I think that Estonia or Latvia in their parliament refused and they haven't overturned it. Many people were saying, why don't they overturn it? Why don't they overturn it? Because those people had to be paid somehow. Anyway, Melia and Iberostar, sorry. They're not doing this because they're good people or anything like that. They're doing it to clean up their image a bit, to see if they can get into a free Cuba. Yes, it depends on me and on some people I've heard say it who are quite influential. Those people won't get a single cent in the new Cuba because they've even been complicit in forced labor.
I completely agree.
Because if you pay a worker, for example, here in hospitality, I don't know, let's say you pay them 1,800 euros, for example. I'm not sure about the salary right now. You pay a hospitality worker 1,800 euros, and it turns out that in Cuba, Melia paid the salary to the state, and the state paid the worker $50. And then all kinds of things happen.
Any waiter or cook in those Iberostar or Melia Spanish hotels in Cuba had miserable salaries, but they pretended to have higher wages. Who kept the difference? The hotel owner and the Cuban government?
I don't know if the business owner, but the Cuban state definitely kept that part. And then obviously that brings about a whole source of corruption, where the workers would steal food, steal a light bulb, steal a sheet, steal soap. They would end up stealing everything.
That's the least of it, right? You knew about this situation, didn't you, Bendala?
I knew about it and I experienced it firsthand in Romania. I was there with the Ceausescus before, during, and after the fall. And what Seide is describing is the same communism. Why is it communism, that socialism, that Marxism? There, I had someone who helped me with some things and would ask me, because of what Seide mentioned, hey, Paco, can you lend me a light bulb? And I would say, but why do you need a light bulb? And he says, because the last one I had at home burned out, and now I've been living in the dark for 3 days. That's just how it is. And I'm talking about the year 89, 1991, not 1833. Well, in Romania, communism was like in Cuba, unfortunately. For a quarter kilo of coffee, girls would prostitute themselves just to bring that home because it didn't exist in communist Ceausescu's Romania. There, corruption was brutal, but out of necessity, because otherwise they wouldn't eat. I've seen lines to buy apples that literally in Spain you wouldn't even give to pigs, and they've never been given to pigs, honestly. And I've seen it, and I'm a witness to what communism is, just like Seide is in Cuba, because it doesn't matter what hemisphere you're in, it doesn't matter the country or the culture. History, communism, socialism, it's always the same everywhere. It generates tons of ruins and rivers of blood because it always ends with rivers of blood. Well, blood it has already shed along the way. I can tell you horrifying things, but the same ones as Seide. Probably even more because now we're in the 21st century and it's unbelievable how that poor island is doing.
Let me add something, please. Add something. Sorry, let me add something. I don't know if the owners of the hotel companies were aware of that situation, but in those hotels, there were many sexual encounters between adults and minors. so many girls, 15, 16, 17 years old, who were prostituting themselves with foreigners, with the same people you later happen to find here, right in front of the Cuban consulate.
And the hotels served as brothels, and maybe someday they'll have to talk about it. And also, those hotels sometimes recorded footage of important people with hidden cameras to be used for blackmail by the Cuban government, right? Of course.
Exactly.
Those hotels have many stories to tell.
Plus all the individuals who have, for example, some people who live here in Barcelona, they have residency in Cuba, and at least once a month they have to go to the island. And I know for a fact, and I can say it before whoever it concerns, that they are sexual predators who go to Cuba to sleep with young girls for €1, for a bar of soap, like Vendala said, for a pack of coffee, for an avocado, things like that.
I know a journalist, and every time we talk about this issue in Cuba, he sends me a WhatsApp saying it's all a lie, it's false. I go there many times. I have a house there. You're talking to me about the same thing, Saida, the same thing. It's incredible, but there are still people who defend it because they think it's okay. That prostitution, that a minor, that, well, it's unbelievable. Speaking of unbelievable things, Bad Bunny has only a few concerts left to finish his tour in Spain. That's good news, and Tony gave me a message from Bad Bunny. Let's see if his ears are burning. Listen.
A guy who doesn't sing, with lyrics that discriminate against women, treating them worse than a goat, and he's able to fill 10 stadiums in less than a month in Spain. We're talking about 1 million people. It shows you how blind this society is.
Let's see, can someone explain to me, Bendala, why that macho guy has that Bad Bunny little house setup where only pretty, blonde, slim, and famous girls go? The ugliest one of all is him, who is monstrous, and besides, he doesn't sing. Like Tony said, he doesn't sing. Can someone explain to me why the left puts him on a pedestal if he's the complete opposite of what they preach?
Well, because I think that in some way he is useful to them. I mean, even though he's a puppet, in the end, Bad Bunny, that's right, a puppet who's making them a lot of money. Because he helps distract people, he helps move the masses to keep them tense in some way, to show themselves off. And above all, in the end, I think it's to spread and corrupt, let's say, morals. And spiritually, to the human being, to everyone who goes there to see a monster because he is a monster, it's something grotesque. It's garbage. But nowadays, with the power of marketing and technology, they present it to us when it's no longer in their interest. Albert also, don't have the slightest doubt that they'll tear it down without any problem and pull another rabbit out of the hat. Also, as you said, but she doesn't even sing. When I heard Saide sing at your party, it was wonderful because we know that Saide is also an artist. She has that ability, that inner talent for singing.
She sings beautifully. In fact, Saida has to admit that the next dinner, which I think will be at Christmas, before that will be difficult, we'll have it in Barcelona. And I want you to be there because you are
Because this is my city.
It's your city too. Imagine. Well, tell me.
Sorry. Let me add something about Benito that people don't know. Benito is Bad Bunny. Benito, everything that doesn't...
Benito is a beautiful name. It's not ugly at all.
No.
Well, sometimes you do, right? Let's see, everything that goes on behind Benito, okay? That comes from all that Puerto Rican leftist separatist movement. In fact, it's also said that behind his first productions, there was money from the Venezuelan tyranny, from Maduro.
Is it true that the manager was a minister in Hugo Chavez's government?
Yes, I mean, he's not there just to sing songs. He's there with another purpose, as Bendala has explained. There's an attempt to subvert society and to contaminate it through these kinds of messages, because if you read any of the lyrics, the man is essentially describing a pornographic movie.
That's right.
Naturally, kids who are 14 to 16 are listening to that, dancing, and they're being bombarded with it. They call us old-fashioned or whatever, but everything in its own time, right? When it's appropriate, and not have children subjected to that kind of hypersexualization and that kind of neo-leftist globalist ideology that they have. They keep putting all those messages and ideas into their heads, and you have to be very alert. You have to be very alert because nothing is a coincidence.
Well, here we like to lead by example, or at least try to. And we always say that we have to take action, that we shouldn't just stay in theory. We try to do things like the last March for Dignity, to organize, to provoke action so that we're not just sitting around like they say, so we don't become couch potatoes. There's a lady, I don't know who the lady is who did what you're about to see in this video, but I have an incredible admiration for her. Imagine you're on the subway or the train and a man sits in front of you who isn't originally from here, at least not born here, an immigrant. He immediately puts his feet up on the seat in front of him right next to you. And you, a Spaniard with a Spanish family with your taxes, have helped pay for that public transportation. It's not private. This woman reacted like this.
Don't put your feet there, pig. Well, don't put them there. I told you and you didn't get upset, right?
We also have cell phones and we can upload it to social media.
But I'm behaving, you're not.
That will be on social media.
Upload it, because I defend my property. This is ours and we have to take care of it, because if they destroy it, in Spain there's a law. We have to take care of this. Take care of it. Do you know what it means to take care of something? That's why we shouldn't destroy it or dirty it with our feet.
What did you think, Vendala? It's about the attitude, right?
A heroine, a real one, a human being with dignity. I mean, Spanish from here, with dignity. A person with courage also, and someone who lives up to what we should all be, because that can't be allowed. Also, I praise her. I'm tired of seeing those attitudes in the Madrid subway, not the attitude of this lady, but the other one, and even confronting them. And I'm also tired of seeing, I've argued with people after politely asking them to take their feet off because they're making a mess. There are a lot of people who side with the person who doesn't even follow the most basic rules of manners and of dignity and respect for others, like sitting properly, not disturbing anyone, not putting your feet up or bringing a backpack and so on. That's what needs to be done, Albert. And I'm glad you bring up this example once again, Albert. It's wonderful here on your show because that's what needs to be done. That's the example we should follow and not be afraid, but really say it politely but firmly. Come on, the belt for me.
Also, there was no insult here at all. The lady acted firmly but politely. We have to protect what belongs to everyone, right, Saide?
Yes, of course. Many times I get on the subway and I say, take your feet off there, just like that. Take your feet off there.
You're really big and you look scary, but I'm not.
Take your feet off there because thanks to you, later the Spanish hate all of us. And then, of course, since they see me like this with a little bit of meat and all that, they say, oh my goodness. But I don't say, what is that? But what is that, man?
No, but it's very important that others...
And the music too.
Of course, but that other Spaniards with a different background like you set an example for those who do it, who are few, but they bother a lot and give a bad image to a decent, hardworking, legal immigration, which is what we have in this country. There's a question I'm going to ask you, and we've been asking it for days, with all the buzz about whether Fei Zhu, in the end, will he dare to present a symbolic motion of no confidence? We've been asking you for a couple of days who you would put forward as the candidate for that motion of no confidence just to get to elections. It has to be someone well-known, unimpeachable, who doesn't belong to any specific political party. Well, I've received a lot of suggestions. We listened to Isabel, Roberto, Pera, and Mayba.
For me, the one I'd love to see and who I think is qualified is Marcos de Quinto.
Why is everyone so focused on Felipe González? Let's remember that at his first celebration when he won the elections, Pablo Escobar Gaviria was celebrating with him, and who knows how many others. For a motion of no confidence, if we're going to put Felipe González, then let's put Chapo Guzman's son, or a good narco-terrorist. No Maduro, let's put Maduro.
My candidate to lead the instrumental motion of no confidence is Rosa Diaz. I think she's an honest and sensible person, and she also knows the ins and outs of Spanish politics perfectly.
I would choose Soraya Sáenz de Santa Maria or Albert Rivera as president for this transition, let's say one of the two.
Let's see, who would you put in that motion, Bendala?
Even though it's tough, you get so burned out after seeing everything that you stop believing in yourself. I don't believe in myself anymore. I was going to say that I would put myself, but obviously that's just crazy. Maybe I would choose Marcos de Quinto because right now I think he's the most consistent with his track record and the person who I think is standing up the most, and I think he's the one who really deserves it. To have that prominence at this moment, also, I really think he would present it very well, that he would be firm, forceful, and also with great dignity. And I also think he would really draw people from all backgrounds, even from the sane left, which does exist. I know people from the left, but they're good people, and I think they would also go with him. I would choose Marcos de Quinto in this case.
And you, Seide?
How many can I choose? Can I only choose one? Because...
Well, if you want, say a couple of names, but not too many.
Well, Alejo Vidal Cuadras and Iván Espinosa de los Monteros.
All right.
And Tamames is the only communist I respect, the only one I respect.
Even though he's a communist, huh?
Yeah, he's the only one. Whenever I say this, people react like, but you hate communists. I say that's why I respect him a little. I don't completely respect him since Tamames and I have clashed. I tell him, pardon my language, communism is crap, Tamames. He tells me, no, Seide, I don't know what. Yeah, but...
The names aren't bad. Hey, M, there's an image that's been going around these days. I've seen it in some messages on social media. You're seeing it now. You can see Feijó with Raul Castro on an official visit he made, I think, in 2017. I'm saying this to move forward. If Feijó becomes president of the government in a year or two, I hope sooner, and actually I hope he never gets there, Feijó. I would like others to get there, but I'm being practical, because that's what it comes down to in the end. Can we trust him? Because images like this one with Raul Castro set off alarm bells for me.
Well, I don't know if you know that Feijó recently, just like Abascal, was received at the residence of the United States ambassador here in Spain, Mr. Benjamin Leon. Marco Rubio has also been talking with Feijó, so he's very well briefed. Anyway, let me say something about this, because I've never talked to Feijó about this matter because I don't even know him, but I have talked to others with the Cantabrians and all that. I've talked to people from the Partido Popular and they told me, look, Seide, this is what they told me. Once in a parliament, they told me, we know that Cuba is a dictatorship. But what really concerns us and why we have to go along with that issue is, and that's a reality, what concerns us are our elderly people who are in Cuba. There are many elderly Galicians, many elderly Cantabrians, and many from other places in Spain who are already very old. And if we don't go along with those people, we can't even send a single euro for them to eat. With this, I'm not justifying that situation because that meeting between Feijó and Raul also brought business to Galicia and to Fidel's house. From Ramon Castro, which is in a town in the middle of nowhere. In Galicia, there in a very remote town, they inaugurated the house of the Galician immigrant. It's the house of the man who left his village to escort, to accompany Fidel and Raul. But, well, those things happen, right? And I think he knows the rules very well.
All right. I trust you. By the way, have you congratulated Raul Castro, who is turning 95 years old?
Yes, may he live another 95 years, but in hell.
That's a nice birthday wish. Well, gentlemen, about the government of Spain, Ana Maria Jose Ignacio and another friend will speak.
How is it possible that even Isabel Duran, the debate journalist, is already saying that Pedro Sánchez is going to win the 2027 elections? That's why he doesn't want to hold elections now, because from the Moncloa Palace, From his bunker there, he's preparing another 5 days of reflection, but with even more malice than before.
Sánchez with his wokeism and modernism, and moving forward because it's the best for society is to create a totalitarian society with the regime of him as a boss who is dedicated to trafficking in the lowest things that exist in humanity, which are drug trafficking and crime.
They're looking at this with the Pope's visit and with Freixo because they're giving it a left and right focus, and things aren't like that nowadays. Nowadays, the world is not divided into left and right. It's divided into globalists and non-globalists.
It would be wonderful to come in with a catcher machine and lift up even the floor tiles to see if we finally start moving and kick these people out into the street.
Bendala, yesterday Alfonso Rojo was telling me that we have a year of suffering left, that he doesn't think these adventures with instrumental motions can move forward before then. Do you agree? Do we have a year left?
Yes, we have a year left, no doubt. Alfonso Rojo, another brave one, another one who, like you, Albert, will one day be recognized by history for your work. This isn't flattery, since I don't really know how to flatter.
Let's see if it catches us alive, because Alfonso and I are already at a certain age.
I'm older, but Alfonso Rojo is also a great analyst. I really think so. I keep saying it. We have one more year. He will call elections only when he considers that all of this, which has been prepared for 2 years, Albert, because he already more or less knew that somehow a series of bombs were going to explode on him. When he considers that he has everything pretty much set up, not to get an absolute majority, but enough to negotiate again with those we already know and stay in power for another 4 years. He is absolutely not finished. He is absolutely not worn out. He may be totally discredited, but this man is just who he is. He is mentally ill, and he also knows that he is taking a very big risk. And maybe he could be the second president to end up in jail. Let's hope the first one is Rodriguez Zapatero, right? And so I think that also scares him, doesn't it? He's still a human being who has his moments, obviously. And so he sees that if he gives up power, he'll end up, well, things could end very badly for him, or by leaving here. But who knows if then the DEA or some other DEA out there will catch him, as it seems is going to happen with Rodriguez Zapatero, and he has preferred to stay here and face a justice system that we know is largely controlled.
Notice that Sánchez always gives clues before committing fraud. For example, before July 23rd, before the rigged election that we believe allowed him to renew his position as president of the government, he wouldn't stop talking about how important mail-in voting was. Listen.
Request your mail-in vote now. It's very simple, it's safe. Mail-in voting has been the lever of change in the United States.
Well, now he keeps sending messages about how important democratic memory is. Why? So that sons, grandsons, cousins in Buenos Aires, in half of Hispanic America, all vote for him. He'll make sure that the rules are just right to keep himself in power. Although Alfonso said, and I hope it's true, Alfonso Rojo, that this time, even if they possibly commit fraud like before, they wouldn't have enough strength. Because in the end, you can move a small percentage with these tricks, but if there's a mass going against him, nothing can stop it. I hope we see it. I would be happy the day he leaves happy. Well, I have to ask you, because both of you are Catholics, and I suppose you're about to leave tomorrow to welcome the Pope. In Madrid and you in Barcelona, right, Saide? Paco is talking about the Pope.
Let me remind you that Papa, the word Papa, in Sanskrit, which is the mother of all languages, in the oldest known language in this world, Sanskrit means sin. Everything has already been said.
Well, you can be critical. Will you see her in Barcelona, Saide, or not?
It's just that I'm not Catholic.
What do you mean you're not? Where are you from? What religion are you?
I'm Protestant.
I didn't know that.
Other than that, I don't go.
Now I understand. I'm about to protest so much that I'll become a Protestant too, like you. I have 10 minutes left. So you didn't even get close to the Pope's visit in Barcelona, right?
No, look, the Pope is an important figure for a certain group of Christians, actually the largest group. But personally, his visit doesn't move me or anything like that. I encourage all Catholics to go see their representative, of course, and to outnumber all those little separatist groups who are now complaining because the Pope is going to give the homily in Spanish. And there's also going to be a group, which is the group of atheists. It's just that these exciting things happen here in Catalonia, right? They always keep you wondering what's going to happen. The group of atheists is going to go, and several people, and there's a lot going on social media, right? Let's speak in Catalan.
The atheists are going to protest in Barcelona against the Pope.
Yes.
My God.
The Catalan separatist atheists, be careful.
Of course, if you're not a Catalan separatist, they won't give you any subsidies, man. Come on. No, man, no atheists for free. What did Sylvia say?
She says she's not going because, like the Pope, she's going to do the Mass and give the homily in Spanish. Well, that's the language of the invader and all those things she has in her mind.
Is the Pope going to be extremely worried that Rios isn't going? Hey, Francisco, they're a test of faith, both Pope Francisco and this Pope. When I was at the Dignity March we attended, COPE, which is the Catholic Church, didn't support it, and I thought that was it, right? Also, they didn't support that march, even though on the tax form, you can check the box for the church, right? I always say, please think before you check that box. There are many more options. The church is not just that. And I'm not saying it because of Caritas. I know they do great work, but honestly, the people who run the church in Spain leave a lot to be desired, don't you think?
Of course, totally. Look, I'm very critical. I'm Catholic, Apostolic, Roman practicing, but I'm very critical of the situation of the church in general in the world, and especially the Spanish church, you see. I'm not going to see the Pope, Leo XIV. I'm really sorry. I think the visit is untimely and, even worse, complicit. I don't think it's the right time to come to Spain or to have received this person there earlier. I also think the Pope should come to preach the gospel, staying away from parties, from these scenes. Madrid is paralyzed. What's happening is really serious. They've sent everyone to work from home. On Sunday, Bishop Cobo, who is disgraceful, ordered the suspension of worship throughout the province of Madrid. We have to go to Mass in the afternoon because the Pope is coming. This wasn't done with John Paul II. It wasn't done with Benedict XV because there's no reason to do it. Plus, they're organizing several parties here in Barcelona. In the Canary Islands, I think they have something prepared with some boats shaped like a cross, and I don't know what else. It's incredible. The Pope, if he comes, is the spiritual leader, not the head of a small, insignificant virtual state that is worthless. He is the spiritual leader and should come to truly preach the gospel. First, tell the Spanish clergy, and you know who I mean, the Episcopal Conference and their media and so on, that they are causing scandal in every way. Also say that we have a series of laws here that are not inspired by the social and moral doctrine of the church. Abortion, the whole sodomite issue, homosexuality, this is depraved because it's not just about respect anymore, but about tremendous depravity. Corruption, he has to come and denounce what Jesus Christ denounced, which is what led him to the cross. He called them Pharisees, whitewashed tombs, hypocrites, and they were the power at that time, you see. Priests, the authorities, and he really called them out. That's also why he ended up on the cross. The Pope, yes, he comes for that reason. The Pope can hold a Mass at Ifema outside of Madrid without bothering anyone, so that whoever wants to can go, and not in a superstitious or forced way, because the Cardinal suspends worship. Then why doesn't he go, for example, to the Pilar of Zaragoza, the first apparition of the Virgin in all of history? And why doesn't he go to the Valley of the Fallen? They're desecrating it since this government is going to destroy the valley, which is a pontifical basilica. So I think it's an untimely visit and, even worse, complicit with what's happening in Spain in every way. I'm sorry, but as a Catholic, that's how it is.
A lot of people think the same way you do, and I'm getting messages along those lines. Look, Sanchez's government is the one that has removed the most crosses in Spain's history, and now they want to whitewash themselves as Catholics. I think that Sánchez, since he's looking for votes wherever he can, now believes he can also fool Catholics by bringing the Pope so they'll vote for him. Look, they're capable of anything.
Of course, Albert, as Henry IV said, Paris is well worth a mass. I think Sanchez, who isn't stupid, believes staying in power is worth bringing the Pope here and parading him around to get a few more votes.
Friends, thank you for being here today. Have a great weekend. Hang in there with the traffic jams in Madrid. Get ready. On Monday, we'll tell you what happened. And as I was saying, today Susana Gas isn't here either, as she lost her mother, and we sent her a huge hug from here. I hope that on Monday she can be here wrapping things up with her usual smile. We miss her. We really miss her on the show. A hug to both of our colleagues. Saida, take care.
A hug.
Goodbye. And friends, today is Friday. Paco Alvarez, our historian, talks about heroes. But today we're doing it with the granddaughter of one of the heroes we talked about here last week and who has reached out to this program. There really are miracles here. In a minute.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillo.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have confidential followers of the program all over the world, and they bring us joy and surprises every day. Every Friday, here Paco Alvarez talks about a hero from the history of Spain. We try to find heroes who are not too well known, people who should have many more public memorials, statues, or streets named after them, but history often forgets about them. And we are talking about Captain Santiago Cortés González. Just a few days ago, together with 200 members of the Civil Guard, he defended men, women, and children for 8 months. In a place in Spain, at the sanctuary of Santa María de la Cabeza in Andújar. The story of this hero had gone largely unnoticed. Luckily, Paco reminds me of these things. Paco, welcome back.
How are you? Well, as always, I'm delighted to be with you, to be with the Confidants, and to remember our heroes, who are so many, and who all of them obviously deserve to be in the books.
Well, what happened here is, and that's where the emotion comes in, is that a friend of the show, whose name is Inca, knows the captain's family. She sends her the audio and video we made here, and in the end, I get a message from Carmelisa Cortés, who is Captain Cortés's granddaughter. Carmelisa, welcome. How are you?
Well, I'm delighted to be with you and on this show, which of course I will follow from now on. Thank you for remembering Captain Cortés, my grandfather, and that handful of brave men who defended the sanctuary of the Virgin of the Head. Not St. Mary of the Head, but Virgin of the Head.
Exactly, of the Virgin of the Head. His grandfather was very great. He was someone in the family, I understand, that's something they've remembered and they venerate him, but I find there's little public recognition outside of that, right?
Well, in these times when we're living through what we're living through in Spain, but indeed, Captain Cortés, even in a town on the coast of Granada, there's a street that still keeps his name. Meanwhile, in Foreign Corembartos near, the province of Jaén, they changed it to La Pasionaria. Anyway, these are the things that unfortunately we are experiencing here.
What a shame.
They left in August. At first, there was some indecision on the part of the head of command, Lieutenant Colonel Iglesias and Commander Nofuentes. But in the end, they decided to go up. Therefore, my grandfather was not the highest ranking officer. Lieutenant Colonel Iglesias was called to Madrid and he knew he wasn't coming back. So he left his wife, Doña Modesta, in charge of the others. Many civilians who were there in the camp under the feet of the Virgin of the Head and guarded, or at least there.
Carmen, Lisa, I wanted to say it's incredible and an honor to speak with you. Your grandfather truly represents living history. But really, your grandfather...
I don't deserve any credit except for always carrying his name with pride and everything. Well, in my blood, and many times I've had to think about who I am in order to always speak in a coherent way.
To be up to the level, obviously, of such great ancestors. What can I tell you? I've thought about him a lot these days. When the UCO went to the General Directorate of the Civil Guard because your grandfather had already been disciplined twice for having acted against the PSOE of that time. I wanted to ask you if in the family, had he ever mentioned anything about it? Well, during the demonstration in 1932 in which he intervened because there were armed socialist deputies. And then, of course, how he ended that and how he also prevented the revolution of 34 from happening in his area, in his guard, if he had ever mentioned anything about that, you know. And on top of that, for following the law, they persecute me and they open a case against me, as has happened, right? As we've seen, is still happening.
I think he didn't care much about that. What mattered to him was maintaining order and discipline. And then even when in the sanctuary, up there in the sanctuary, Commander Fuentes, wanted to hand over weapons to the Republican side. And he said that, well, they could hand over a few that were already in bad condition. And what happened was he was captured. Well, he was taken prisoner and took over as the head of the camp. He wasn't the oldest, but the one who took authority didn't force anyone. In fact, he said, here we are. Whoever wants to stay with me can stay. Whoever doesn't want to stay with me can leave. But we're here for what we're here for.
One thing, Carmelita, are there grandchildren? Do you have grandchildren too, or great-grandchildren who are going to be civil guards? Is the family tradition being kept not just with your father?
The only one who wanted to be in the civil guard was me. I was born before my time to do it. That's my true calling, a frustrated calling. And the only way I could get rid of that longing was by becoming a volunteer reservist. But the Civil Guard doesn't have volunteer reservists either. So I'm a volunteer reservist in the Army.
That's great.
But only for only Alfer. I've made it to Alfer.
Well, no, just an officer of the Spanish infantry. Oh my, are you in the infantry? Does that seem like little to you?
There are more in the reserves. I mean, Navy, Army, and there are...
Yes.
And so, well, I chose, obviously. But there are many people who, even if we don't believe it, or they don't believe it, or it's not known, still remember Captain Cortés. I go to the sanctuary a lot, on average twice a year, to lay the laurel wreath or the bouquet of flowers with our wonderful red and yellow flag. I mean, red, yellow, and red. I make some stripes with our flag. Now in the crypt where he is currently buried, in the sanctuary of the Virgin of the Head itself, that was done in 45. Because once, as Paco mentioned, they had identified him by his military tunic in the mass grave. Then he went on to the convent of the medical staff in Andujar. And once the sanctuary was rebuilt, he was transferred with great honors to Inodos and all of that. Every time I go up to the crypt, which they don't let us do anymore, well, we have to, or I have to, ask for permission from the command. Before going, I sign in, they open the crypt for me, I bring the wreaths, and that's it. Only family members are allowed in, but there are many people who go, Captain Cortés, and are you family? Because we've been told we can't go in. Well, yes, it's an honor. And I feel full of pride, honestly.
It's wonderful.
It's a lot of zeal, obviously, but I don't want to talk. And the same, if this costs me something because of the issue of historical memory, I wouldn't mind for myself, but for the captain.
What I'm going to say is that in the Civil Guard, honor is my badge is not just a slogan. And people like your grandfather and your father are proof that this is true. I mean, if there is still honor in Spain, it's because the Civil Guard protects it, plain and simple.
Well, exactly. And as he said, the Civil Guard dies but does not surrender. That was stated by him. The sanctuary had surrendered. The sanctuary did not surrender anymore. The sanctuary fell on May 1st. And he died, as Don Francisco explained very well the other day. He died the next day on May 2nd in the field hospital, very close to between the sanctuary and Andujar. But it took them 4 hours to make that journey. It seems they were asking him a series of questions. And well, I have here, let's see, they communicated through carrier pigeons. Many times the messages are encrypted. I have all the parts of these wars, of these pigeons in the paintings. They were sending messages to Cordoba. General Tipo de Llano had a special affection for the sanctuary, and he wanted to free them at all times. Just like they had done with the house in Toledo, they were going to do the same with the sanctuary, and they were communicating continuously. So some pigeons ended up in the hands of the enemy. The Republican Army, well, the messages had to be encrypted. But there's one that I copied for this interview. If that's all right with you, I'm going to read it because I think
Can you tell us the message that the coded carrier pigeon was carrying?
Yes, that one wasn't coded.
That one wasn't coded.
No, and also it's from April 27th. That is 3 days before the sanctuary fell. But I think it has such beautiful grandeur. That's why before coming here, I copied it in case I was given the opportunity to read it.
What does that letter say, Carmelisa?
A civil day, high-end command, acting chief captain. Of course, he was the acting chief captain, the acting chief of the camp. Most excellent, sir. At 1400 hours launched towards this camp. I see 10 armored tanks. They are the last resort our enemy could turn to for the achievement, of their sinister purposes. Although the doves released this morning are still among the rubble of this sanctuary, with the faith that as a Christian and a patriot, I put into all my actions, I take the liberty of addressing Your Excellency once again to bring these facts to your attention, in case there is still time, that consideration might be given to how necessary the aid is. I've been interested in this for a while. I'm not asking for it for myself. After all, my life isn't worth much. But I am asking for the 1,200 innocent souls who beg me for it, without losing hope for liberation. May God keep Your Excellency for many years. Sanctuary Camp, April 27th, 1937. Captain Santiago Cortés, he signs it with his signature, and it is addressed to the most excellent gentleman of the national armies, General Chief of the Southern Army, and Military Governor of Cordoba, General Pepo de Llano. With this,
I think it's beautiful, and it shows that until the end he thought about the civilians he was protecting and not about his own life. Just 3 days before this was over, Carmelita Cortés, it has been a pleasure to meet you and remember your grandfather and to know that his essence lives on in you and other family members. Thank you very much.
thank you all so much for giving me this opportunity. Nice to meet you all. And well, thank you, Paco, for remembering and bringing back so many people, so many heroes who have left behind such beautiful, honorable stories. It's our beloved homeland.
It's an honor to talk about people like your grandfather, to meet you, and to have witnessed living history. This history lesson you just read to us is, well, I mean, it's the best thing that's definitely going to happen to me in a long time. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Honestly, I recommend the book. I'm not getting any commission. The Hill of Heroes by Santiago de Lucia. I'm saying this because it's written based on the testimonies of all the survivors who were sent to Valencia. So the events were very, very, very recent, and he was gathering them very well.
The Hill of the Heroes. I'm going to write down that name.
Carmelisa, Paco Alvarez, thank you both very much.
Albert, Paco, a big hug.
Goodbye, dear. Goodbye, Paco. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Friends, I'm getting a lot of messages, and here's something important from Catalina about what's happening to shops with the tax office. Listen.
I just finished shopping at a small business. Since I needed the receipt, I asked the gentleman to please give me the receipt. And he replied that his machine was broken, so he had to write it by hand with all the details. He said, "I'm not going to buy a new machine because the new one I have to install has to be connected directly to the tax office by law." I was completely shocked.
But it's true, it's true. I mean, while Sanchez's gang is looting the country and Zapatero is getting rich, here they go after the shopkeeper to see if he keeps a euro and doesn't declare it on his income tax. They should be kicked out of the country as soon as possible so we can start cleaning up and restoring things. Well, get ready, there's more. Someone who doesn't want me to say their name, Jay. He sent me this comparison between an owl and Lere Diez. They actually look very similar. But please don't compare an honest and clean owl with that creature. No, let's keep everything in its place. And Froilanister, we have a new episode of his Sanchida. Take a look. The brother is approaching.
Man, David, what's wrong with you? Why do you have that look on your face? No, I can't take it anymore. My art is trapped within these four walls. My artist's soul is suffering. Don't get like that, man. I'll think of something and let you know. Go do your thing. Thank you, Pedro.
All sad, David Sanchez.
How hard it is to be president. Bolanos?
Yes, Sanchida.
Run. Useless. I always have to organize things to make my brother happy myself.
No, Sanchida, of course not. I'll handle it now. Gutancito, come here.
And quickly.
And a little while later,
we've set up the assembly hall so he can perform a concert for all of us at Moncloa.
Really? Thank you. At last my art will fly free. Take that. Are you stupid, Bolaños? I said buy him amusement park tickets, not concert tickets. Who wants to go to a boring concert?
I asked Gutancito to bring volunteers to San Sanchida, and you too.
And you're going too, right?
Not me, Sanchida. I have a lot of ironing to do.
Come on, you rascal. Get inside. Volunteer? Volunteer? Pedro Guapa? No, please, have mercy.
And there they forced the foreign minister, Oscar Puente.
By force. No, please, I'd rather die. But he's rich.
Still have lots of ironing to do. Hi, Pedro. Is this where they renew the ministries?
Sure. Just go to the back door. They'll renew it for 4 years.
Hi, Pedro. I'm here for the concert. Bolaños called me.
But why are you recording me?
Leine.
Oh, sorry. It's just a habit.
Incredible concert, Sanchida. That was amazing. Nothing like it has been seen since Mozart. Thank you. It has been a real privilege. It hasn't even started yet, you idiots. Get in, cockatoos.
That's how the Freud and Lannister people are. Honestly, they perfectly illustrate what politics in Spain is like every day. Sylvia, thank you for your message.
I've been following you since the time of Gil, all that happened in Marbella during the Balena Blanca days, and when Pantoja was with the mayor of Marbella. Well, I'm a loyal follower of yours. I'm sending you a hug and thank you for fighting for our Spain.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. A kiss. Honestly, looking at it from a distance next to Sanchez and his gang, Isabel Pantoja was practically a saint. Look, several of you are sending me this. Pedro Sánchez claims that there is a paid campaign to badmouth him. It says, "Does anyone know where you get paid? Because I've been badmouthing him for years for free. Count me in." All right. And my support goes to the folks at Terra Ignota, whose YouTube channel has been shut down, and I hope they get it back soon because there's no reason for that closure. A lot of you regulars have reminded me of it.
Just so you know, Terra Ignota, who I think you know, they're really great, and, well, they're insiders, I believe. Their YouTube channel has been shut down.
Thank you, my friend, and we'll keep ourselves informed to see what we can do to give them a hand, which is what they would do for us. Well, friends, it's Friday. It's been a tough week for many reasons that you already know. At any moment, if we show up here, it's because something serious is happening, maybe related to the Pope's visit. And I hope not. I hope everything goes smoothly, but our information says that Sánchez takes advantage of everything, and he's not going to miss out on the international spotlight that the Pope's visit gives him. So caution, vigilance, and we stay in the trenches. Hugs.
Tú lo sabes y yo lo sé. Somos confidenciales. Tú eres confidencial. Yo soy confidencial. Todos confidenciales. Todos confidenciales. Pero solo para mentes abiertas y para gente despierta. Desde la trinchera las balas silban y no hay manera de salir allá afuera. Aquí la libertad tiene las alas de cera. Albert Castillo, Susana Gash, Tucci Castillo y demás. Muchas gracias. Con esto y un bizcocho. Hasta mañana a las 8.
Castillón Confidential by Albert Castillón